Welcome back to the 27. Patch 1.2.4.1 is here, and with it, Monza and some of its historical variations. But this patch is much more than that, so we'll be reviewing the patch notes line by line so that you can have an idea of what's to come the next time you log on. As always, they break it down into content, general, UI and HUD, physics, AI, which is a big one this time, audio, tracks, and vehicles. So let's start from the top. And here we are with a post from Renato Simeoni in the Automobilista 2 news and announcements folder on the forums, with a lovely picture of two McLaren 720Ss out front at Ascari, as it should be. Beginning with Renato, the wait is finally over. The new Automobilista 2 update has arrived, introducing the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza with several layouts and versions through the decades. The update also features a wide range of improvements to the AI, several UI developments, improvements to real weather system, along with various revisions to vehicle art, audio, and physics. Missing from the update is the BMW 2002, which you all should know is the planned vehicle that was supposed to be released this patch. It's going to be a week late. The BMW 2002 is a 1970s era touring car class. It's not going to be in the GT Classics racing class. It's going to be in the touring car class. It's famous for having a magnificent turbo lag and a very difficult car to drive, so I'm looking forward to spinning out with it. Continuing, which has remained on shop for further developments. It should be added to the game in a complimentary update next week. So okay, so in a couple of days. That's great. Scrolling down, ooh, that's a lovely picture. It makes me want to upgrade my computer. There's some ultimates at I think turn 1 at the modern GP. And then, there's a lovely picture of some, I believe, Formula Classics at 1991, the 1991 GP variant. That's the double chicane first sector there. Actually helps fix Monza in a lot of ways. Oh, and they're finishing off with the Formula Vintage G1 Model 2, the one with the wings. Okay, so let's start with the changelog. Obviously, Monza was added, but it wasn't just the modern GP. It was a junior version, 1971 GP, a 1971 junior, a 1971 10K, a 1971 10K without chicanes, and the 1991 GP that you just saw above. If you want more information about those tracks, I refer you to my previous video about the tracks themselves. So let's start with general. Bullet pointing some of this, they implemented Real Weather API for 5 days in the past and 4 days in the future from today. That's great, making Real Weather more practical in usage. They also fixed the championship editor not persisting mandatory stop setting correctly, which I think has been something that a lot of people have been noticing and complaining about when trying to set a custom championship together. So hopefully that starts working as intended. Moving into the UI and HUD, now this is something that's interesting. They reorganized some things. They've reorganized and refreshed the session overview and pre-event leaderboards to increase number of rows and allow grouping by class. There's a lot more information on that page now. It's really great. All in-game environment information, time, temperature, etc. is now updated live on all screens. So that's a wonderful thing. So a lot of the times when you're starting a multiplayer session, you're looking at, what was the temperature of the track again? That's kind of information that you always want to have on hand, and that's what they're looking to introduce here. So that's great. They added event session information, current vehicle setup, and current pit strategy to session overview and pre-event screens. Okay, so that's even more information. Everything that you need to know before getting a session started should be there. Probably they'll be adding more of this as well, but it's a work in progress. But any improvement here is greatly appreciated. Moving on to the physics, minor tread adjustments for the GT3, GTE, stock V8, Formula Ultimate, Formula Risa, the V12, the Classics, the DPI, and P1 cars. Now, as you know, tire tread adjustments could mean a lot of things. How the heat interacts with the track, how wide the tires are, what the contact patch is, the effects of camber and things like that. So these little minor adjustments can turn out to be noticeable on track and sometimes change the balance of the cars. Hopefully they don't change it too much for anything that I've worked on, though. Okay, so the stock car V8, they had a minor Aero Revision, if you can recall from the podcast with Renato several weeks ago. He said that the stock car 2019 was too fast, so maybe they're going to slow it down here with this Aero Revision. Makes sense. Lovely car, nevertheless. The Formula Ultimate, they added custom track ERS maps, okay, and optimizing boosts for straights and all GP layouts. Okay, so that's just GP layouts, and I imagine just the modern versions, but the Formula Ultimate now should have proper deployment of the ERS system, which is automatic. So just think of it as race engineer controlling when the ERS is deployed. The Ultimate GTR race, they revised the default setup. That car needs a lot of default setup love. I had to do a lot of revisions in my build, so it makes sense that they would revise it themselves as well. Moving into the big one, guys, AI. Okay, so they improved a lot here. So let's take a look at it in depth. They improved the AI overtaking logic, wonderful. The behavior when behind a slower car in practice and qualifying sessions, if you can recall, in practice and qualifying, they have a tendency to pack up quite drastically, and if you catch up with that group, there's just you have to overtake 10 cars in quali, and it's just ridiculous. They adjusted AI lateral movements for smoother, more natural reactions. This is something that they've been tinkering with for the last several months, actually, so hopefully this revision further improves that natural kind of look that the cars have when moving left and right on the track. They decreased AI performance in 70 to 100% strength range. That's interesting. So it looks like they're balancing the AI performance a little bit more. They improved AI blue flag behavior. Now this is something that I've read about as well. Like blue flag behavior would be like when the cars are pulling over to the side to let the leaders pass. Now this happens in Formula 1, I know for sure, that's by rule, but in most categories they don't have this, you have to let people pass. In a lot of endurance categories, the car in front is entitled to their racing line, because in the endurance context it's just part and parcel to the race. It's not like you're not lapping cars like in a modern GP. You're lapping cars normally in a multi-class situation. So anyway, we'll see how that works out. They adjusted AI brake power and grip. That's always good. They did some various adjustments to AI overtaking parameters. As you know, that's a frustrating point for a lot of people. The corner cut, the dive bomb off track has been something that a lot of players have noticed. I've noticed. It's been talked about a lot, so they're making improvements there. AI corner and straight line calibration passes. That is always welcome, because it's a frustrating thing when you're driving against AI and they're just rocket ships in straight lines, or particularly slow, or their cornering speed is just way more. They have way more cornering performance than the player does, and they just swamp you. Lastly, for the AI, I'm going to mention here, they did a minor GT Classic AI adjustment. Okay, so that's good. Now for the audio, I'm going to bullet point some of this. They updated the grass roll sample. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe just the way the grass sounds through your headset. The skidding on grass at high speed shouldn't trigger the tarmac skidding sounds. That's nice. It should sound like that, right? So let's see. Other things have some various, they're car specific actually. Formula Ultimate, Opala, the Passat, Formula Retro Classic, the Montana, all had some sound loops and sound mixing things tinkered with. So everything's going to sound a little bit more polished. For the Sauber C9, they increased backfire off throttle. I love that. I love that effect. And then they polished some engine loops for the Porsche RSR 74 and M1 Pro car. All these minor changes you may not even notice, but comprehensively, when you go in, it's just going to feel right. It's going to sound right, sound more realistic. As far as tracks are concerned, they did some LOD adjustments to the 3D crowd model. They did some in Montreal, and then also they moved the rolling start location for Hockenheim 1988 GP short. Okay, and moving into vehicles, let's see here. The Formula Vintage, all models, they detached cockpit gear shifts, adjusted the driver feet position, and adjusted hand animations during gear changes. Now, a lot of people notice this when you're in cockpit view, where the hands go and where the feet are placed. Sometimes they're morphed into the driving wheel and things like that, so they're cleaning that up. They have the ability to do that. That's great. It looks like somebody looked at the ARC Camaro and be like, hey, look, we're going to fix this thing once and for all. So they did a whole slew of fixings for the ARC Camaro. They added dirt damage, dangling damaged parts. They changed the driver model. They detached the gear shifter, collisions, wiper positions, bonnet model. They merged the boot with the rear wing. This is somebody comprehensively went in and said, you know what, that's it, the Camaro is done. Moving forward, they did some work to the Metamoros. The stock Cruze and Corolla have new livery overrides. That's always welcome for people that like liveries. They fixed the cockpit steering wheel's pivot position in the Porsche RSR 74, lovely. And the Metal Moro AJR, they have a new display layout, fixing some of the car's thumbnails as well. And that wraps it up for patch 1.2.4.1, and we're looking finally at a picture of the Formula Vintage G1 Mod 2 at one of the 10K layouts at Monza. And I wonder which car here is in front, because the other one's way behind if that's the case. In any event, I wanted to thank you guys for listening. Upcoming, we're going to be looking for a development blog update from Renato. If that's the case, if it drops, I'll let you know. Also, more builds to come. Thanks for watching, and take care.